listening to The Switch. The Switch is a podcast about ideas and experiences that change our minds. I'm Chase Harris, joined as always by my co-host, Alex Berner. In this episode, we speak with my cousin, Alleah Webb. Alleah is the CEO and creator of Drifter Coffee, a mobile coffee shop in Southeast Michigan. In this conversation, we talk about Alleah's experience as an entrepreneur and successful small business owner.
If you like what we do here on The Switch, the best way to support us is through Patreon. For as little as $1, you can become part of the community, ask us questions, suggest topics, and directly communicate with us. You can also unlock bonus content like extra questions we ask our guests. If you want more of The Switch, both on topic and off, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com/switch_podcast.
You can also support us by rating and reviewing on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you listen to us. If you want to connect with us on social media, we're on Instagram and Twitter at switch_podcast. And on Facebook, we are The Switch Podcast.
The Switch is produced by Mojo Filter Media, a company specializing in audio production for video games and interactive media. You can check out our website at www.mojofilter.media.
And so, without further delay, we start with a quote from Jocko Willink's book, Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. Fear of failure. Fear of failure can keep you from taking the risk. It can leave you sitting there, paralyzed into not taking action. And that's obviously bad. But I don't want you to overcome fear of failure. I want you to be afraid of failure. Fear of failure is good. Fear of failure will keep you up at night, planning, rehearsing, going over contingencies. Fear of failure will keep you training hard. Fear of failure will stop you from cutting corners. Fear of failure will keep you working, thinking, striving, and relentlessly trying to be more prepared for battle. So I want you to be afraid of failing. I fear failure. But more important, I want you to be horrified, terrified of sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing. This is what I want you to be afraid of. Waking up in 6 days or 6 weeks or 6 years or 60 years and being no closer to your goal. You've made no progress. That's the horror. That is the nightmare. That is what you really need to be afraid of, being stagnant. So get up and go. Take the risk, take the gamble, take the first step, take action, and don't let another day slip by. And with that, I would like to I'd like to introduce today's guest on The Switch, Alleah Webb. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chase and Alex? ?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
No problem.
Thanks for having me. I love your podcast. I think it's great. I love podcasts in general. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks. We're excited to have you. So before we get into the bulk of today's topic, which is entrepreneurship, I want to get a sense of your story and sort of where you come from. So start us at the beginning with, where did you grow up? What was childhood like?
Okay. Well, I grew up in Michigan, in Livonia, which is a really small, very boring town. I'm the oldest of 2 siblings, and my parents kind of weren't really around very much when I was a kid, so very quickly I learned how to raise my brother and sister, making lunches, signing permission slips, making sure everything was taken care of, so I grew up very fast. And I feel like that really gave me the skills to balance a billion things at once and be very organized. And I went to school at Central Michigan University. I originally went to school for meteorology. I wanted to be the weather girl. That I thought it would have been really cool, but I would have had to get a math minor, and I hate math. So I decided to take a 1-credit entrepreneurship course when I was in college. And in that class, we had to make a business plan for anything. And so I decided to make a business plan for a coffee shop. And through that process of making the business plan, of organizing what it would look like, where would we get product, who would I hire, what would the systems look like, it just like clicked for me. And that's when I started really, really, really studying business and working in coffee and going to coffee shops all over the country with my little notebook, taking notes of what I liked, what I didn't like, what were the people like in the shop, what were the prices, how was the coffee, how was the atmosphere, was it working, was it not working, all that sort of stuff. And I've worked in probably 20 different coffee shops, and along the way I learned a lot of what not to do. Being in the barista mindset, learning what pisses a barista off about their boss, what makes a barista feel good, what makes their job difficult, that sort of thing all along the way, while I was developing my own vision in my head about what I wanted to create one day. And so I worked in coffee for like 7 or 8 years. And then once I got my degree in entrepreneurship with a minor in leadership, I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to go work full time in a coffee shop, see how it goes. And at the same time, I had an opportunity to go work for my mom, who has a business. I came from a long line of business owners. So my great grandpa owned a hay business, and then, which I didn't find out till recently, my grandma owned a flower shop, and we really grew up in the flower shop, going on deliveries, helping making arrangements, eating chocolates a lot, and really seeing what it took to run a family business. And then about 15 years ago, my mom and grandma started a really intense business that took care of elderly people. So I got to really see from their development stage to running the business to their growth stages. And now they're $1 million company, to see what it took to really run a business. And so I ended up working for my mom for a year in her office, using the trainings that I learned in my classes to help her grow her business to the next level. And for a while, I thought I would take over her business so my grandma could retire, because she's old as hell. She's still working 9 to 5. But then I realized that old people are not my passion. Do you want me to dive into how I started my business? You want me to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So I realized that old people were not my passion. And so I secretly started taking really long lunches and applying for coffee jobs while I was on the clock for my mom, and pretending I was getting work done when really I was working on my resume and working on my business plan. And I decided I needed to work in coffee again. So I quit working for my mom and I dove right back into coffee. And I found out about these programs in Detroit. Detroit has a very, very supportive business community. There's lots of opportunities, lots of classes, lots of mentors, tons of business programming for startups. It's a really good place for startups. And so I signed up for this class called Build, and it was a 3-month course all about how to really start your business with all like the nitty-gritty details, using numbers from your business, using like figuring out what exactly do you need to do to market your business, what exactly do you need to do to raise funds, what's your overhead like, what is your unit, like how much are you going to sell your items for, what's your cost of goods sold, all that sort of stuff. And during that class, I was really, really, really fired up. I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start a coffee truck. I decided I wanted to do a coffee truck because starting a coffee shop was going to cost like $100,000. I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to make that much money. And I figured that starting a lot smaller was the way to go. And I also didn't really know where I wanted to set up my shop yet. So actually, it was your mom, Chase, who really put the idea in my head of starting a coffee shop or a coffee truck. So I really have her to thank. She really pushed me. She really supported me. And anytime she was out, she would send me pictures of different food trucks that she saw when she was around.
She's very into food trucks.
Yes. So really, she fueled my fire.
Yeah.
For sure. She supported me, and she still supports me, which is so great. And so I decided, like, my whole theory around going mobile, which I still think about every day, was that if I'm sitting in one place waiting for people to come to me, I feel like I'll have a lot less success than if I take my business around to the people.
Yeah.
So I started taking my business to different neighborhoods that I've never even been before, showing up to crowds of people that I've never seen before, and really gaining an insight about what exactly it is that I like when I'm serving coffee. What kind of environment do I like? What kind of target market do I like? What kind of event works? What doesn't work? Where do I make money? Who's my target market? Hipsters, for sure. Who's my target market? Where do I fit in? Like, where do I feel like I'm at home? What do I hate? Anything that has to do with cars. I will not do a car event. Things like that. And I was able to spread my message and spread energy and caffeine and ideas all over the city. So, because for me, it's not just about serving coffee, it's about making people happy. So we were able to, like, meet people from all over, tell them about ourselves, make them feel good, ask them about what's going on in their lives, and get some of their energy, and then take that energy to the next spot and spread those vibes around there. And so that's been really cool, and it's also really good marketing to be able to go all over the place rather than sit in one place and hope that people show up. And so I've been doing that for 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yes, I know. I've passed the point where most businesses fail. So
That's awesome.
I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. What was it like actually building the coffee truck and acquiring the trailer and all that?
It was really scary and also really fun. I had a lot of very excited energy, like all of a sudden something switched in my brain, and I was just like, I can work for hours. Like, I was working like, I still work like 12 hours a day usually, and I was just like full of ideas and energy, and my brain was like exploding, and that felt really good. And it was also really scary when I picked up the trailer, because we found it on Craigslist, and it was falling apart. It was a mess, but I knew I was going to get it, and immediately I felt like I was going to throw up. I was like, oh my God, like, if I buy this right now, I have to do this, and I have to climb this huge mountain with this trailer. But luckily, my friends and family, for the most part, everybody really leaned in and offered their help in any way. I think that they were really attracted to, like, this energy that I had. They wanted to be a part of it. And my dad was the most important person for the build out. He basically stopped everything he was doing and accepted that he was going to have to work his ass off to make this trailer happen. So it was him and I talking about customer flow. Where are they going to order? Where are they going to pick up their drink? Where are they going to put their cream in? How's it going to flow? Where should the sink go? Where should the cups go so we don't have to turn our back on the customer? Like, all these different things. And he has a really incredible mind for designing things out of wood and plumbing and electrical. And the coolest part about the whole build out was that before we started, my dad and I didn't really have a good relationship. As I said before, he kind of just like wasn't really around when we were kids. So I was like pretty pissed off about that for a really long time. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I told him about the project, he was 100% committed. And that like changed everything for us, which is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's
awesome. So we worked for about 6 months throughout the winter, 20-degree weather. My dad was out there with a little propane heater, like sawing wood and using a nail gun or whatnot. And we just worked our asses off. And then we launched the business in May. And by that time, everyone was freaking excited. Yeah. And we had done a crowdfunding campaign. What was
that like?
That was really, really hard. I always joked that it was like a real campaign. Like I had to be out in the public asking people for money in such a way. I really felt like I was like shaking hands and meeting people and convincing them that this is a good idea and convincing them that they needed a coffee truck in their community. And it was a full-time gig. I was posting funny videos on social media a lot and like taking pictures of myself doing handstands and all this stupid shit. But it really like worked. People thought that we were really nice. People were excited. They wanted a coffee truck in their community. Luckily, most people are addicted to coffee, so I didn't really have to convince them too much that it was a good product. Yeah, he's drinking it. If I was doing something like selling pies, you have to convince someone to buy a pie because it's not good for you. You don't eat pie every day. You shouldn't eat pie every day. But coffee is something that people have to have every single day. They're straight up addicted.
Yeah.
And so it's a much more viable business and much easier to convince people, yeah, you need a cup of coffee right now. You look like you need one.
Yeah.
So, but we successfully raised $12,000, which is insane.
Yeah.
And then I launched the business, and when I had our launch party, we had like a full, we did it in a community garden, and it was packed. People showed up. People were excited. It was really awesome.
Yeah. So in this whole journey from like the first concept idea to, your sort of first moment where you realized like this is happening and it's on an upward trajectory, what were some encouraging moments or influences? Like what were the things that happened to you where you were like, yes, I'm on the right path? Or obviously you mentioned your dad. Were there other people who were like super gung-ho about the idea?
Yes, I would say so. My fiance, he, on my 24th birthday, I was 24 when I started my business. And he just like, for my birthday, he didn't get me any presents or anything, but he just gave me like this speech that was like, it is time. You are ready. I'm going to do everything I can possibly do to make this work for you. And so it was like, at that moment, I knew that I wasn't alone. And that was really encouraging for me. And another encouraging moment was when all my friends asked me if they could work for me. That made me feel like, okay, this is something that people are excited about. People want to be a part of it. That must mean it's a good idea. Definitely.
Yeah. So on the other end of that, what were there like discouraging moments or influences? And in particular, sort of how did you navigate that?
Yes. So as I said before, my grandma is very business-minded. I went to her hoping to find a mentor, someone who could even just say, hey, this is how you file an LLC, or this is how you set up a business bank account, or this is how you hire an employee. And she was like a stone wall.
Mhm.
She was not having it. I don't know what was going on with her, but she wasn't supportive at all. And so it was discouraging because I didn't have a mentor at all when I started. So I had no one guiding me to tell me the right or wrong way to do things. And that was a very scary position for me to be in. I felt very vulnerable. I felt very scared. I felt like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't even know how to set up my business, and I just had to I had to get out of my comfort zone and ask strangers in the business community for help, which turned out okay, but it made me feel, those are some moments when I felt like, I don't know if this is what I should be doing. From this lady who's been running her business for like 30 years, doesn't even have enough faith in me to give me any advice at all. That was really hard.
And how did you sort of push through that on a psychological level? I mean, you mentioned from a practical perspective, reaching out to the business community at large, but how do you think you sort of got yourself through that?
I definitely started to be very open with my friends and family and my community, open and vulnerable about how I was feeling. I didn't try to sugarcoat it. I did a lot of self-disclosing with people around me, opening up, letting them know I'm really struggling. I couldn't sleep last night. My mind is racing. I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to do about that. And through, number one, getting the feelings out of my head, getting them out, I immediately started to feel better. And that opened the door for people to offer their help, to offer their advice, to refer me to a friend who might be able to help. And so I started to get my friends involved in an emotional way, and they felt like they were a part of it by giving me advice or saying, hey, my friend works in an office. She says you could come pop up and serve coffee, and little things like that, where I just had to really be honest and vulnerable with people and not act like I knew what I was doing, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was much more approachable as an ignorant, true, vulnerable business owner than if I had just hidden it and pretended like I knew what I was doing.
Do you think that's a common way to get through that in businesses? Because I feel like I also hear people talk about the other, I just put on a front and fake it till you make it, and to me it makes more sense to do the approach that you described, because in the end we're all just people, forming various connections. But yeah, what do you think the difference was between the way you handled it, and is that a thing in the business community that you see?
Yeah, so definitely that fake it till you make it attitude is appropriate for different experiences and different moments in your business career. There were some moments along the way where I had to fake it, like in front of customers, or showing up to a pop-up where I'm terrified, but I'm just pretending that everything's okay. But honestly, I feel like within anything that you do, being your authentic self, being true, showing people who you really are, opens the door for them to be authentic and vulnerable themselves. And number one, if you're authentic, then you're giving yourself a gift. You are being your true self. You're not hiding anything. If you're hiding who you really are, that's going to make you feel really anxious. And anxiety takes up a lot of energy. So the more you're hiding, the more anxiety you have, the less energy you have to run a business. And being authentic allows people to really believe you. Like, you're not putting on a front. They're not going to the coffee shop where the baristas are way too cool to even have a conversation. They're going and they're seeing real people who make mistakes, who screw up, and who have real feelings. And I think ultimately that makes people want to support you even more. I would rather give my money for a cup of coffee to a coffee shop that isn't quite perfect, but that owns up to their mistakes, than giving money to a coffee shop where people are acting like they're too cool.
Yeah. When do you think was the first moment where you sort of went, okay, like I have some marker of success, like there's at least one opportunity for failure that's behind me now, like I made it? Or even if it's not the first one, what do you feel like was the biggest moment like that? You mentioned at the beginning you made it past the point where most businesses fail.
Yeah. I think that's a tough question. I think I knew that I made it. I knew that I had a successful business when I made my business plan, I did my projections based on having one event every weekend. Within 3 months of opening my business, I was like, okay, I'm going to have every Saturday, I'm going to have something booked. And then within the first month, we had every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Wednesday, and people were calling me, and people were emailing me, and I couldn't keep up, and I was exhausted. That's when I felt like, okay, this is going much better than I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the biggest, and then I guess the other point when I knew that I was successful was when we started getting phone calls for interviews for magazines, local magazines. Our Detroit is a huge magazine. They wanted to interview us. The local news channels wanted to interview us, and I was like, okay, we must be cool now. That's when I really felt like, okay, I feel success now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, Alex and I come from the music industry, and for us, one of the things that we heard from our professors and mentors when you're talking about being a contract artist of some sort, there's a turning point where rather than you being the one to chase down clients and ask them and hope they say yes, suddenly they start calling you, and you are now in the position to say yes or no. And that's like the music industry version of that turning point.
Oh, and, for sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys make it to that point?
Not yet.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
So I guess now I want to sort of get into more of the philosophy behind entrepreneurship and small business ownership. And, feel free to relate things back to your story. But I'm curious, how do you see the role of something like motivation as opposed to discipline? We'll cover discipline in a minute. But how do you see the role of motivation in, keeping the business alive or success or any of that?
So motivation to me is very important because it's a feeling that you can give yourself instead of being afraid. I can really pay attention to the scared part of my brain, or I can pay attention to my goals and my visions and the vision for the future. And my vision for the future motivates me to work hard today. I know what I want to create. I know what my dream is. I know I have to work my ass off to get there. that means today I have to do all these things on my list, even though I'm terrified. So it's sort of like a powerful tool against being afraid, I guess.
Okay. And so what about discipline on sort of the other side of that?
Discipline is super important when you're running a business because the business there are things you have to absolutely do. You have no choice. You have to do them or else your business will crash. And that's something that I realized maybe within a year of my business, because I was thinking, like, I see all these businesses around me in the business community, and I see some people trying really hard, and I see some people not trying really hard, and I realized that a lot of businesses fail because it gets too hard and they give up, and they don't do the things that they need to do. So discipline, you need to have a lot of discipline to get up in the morning, even when you don't feel like working, to work. Even maybe you feel a little bit sick or you want to sleep in, you have to work. You have to work. You have to work 12 hours a day, maybe 6 days in a row, to get the things done that need to be done, because they absolutely need to be done or else your business is going to stop existing. So I struggled with that a lot when I first started, because I wanted to go hang out with my friends and I wanted to have a life and I wanted to sleep in, but there was no way I could. There were so many things that needed to be done.
What would a 12-hour workday look like for you in general? Like, what are some of the things that you have to get done?
So I usually, in a typical workday, I'm getting up, I'm working on my emails. There's always a billion emails in my inbox. I hate them. I'm not good at them. Like, I think right now I have like 300 emails that I haven't even looked at. They just keep piling up, and so I'm always working on emails. I always have different applications I have to fill out for different events. I always have messages in my phone inbox that I have to address, and then I go to the kitchen, usually with a staff member. I get them set up for the day. They're prepping, they're making our product for the events for the week. Checking in with them, I'm going to run and get more product, going on different errands. I'm picking up cups, I'm picking up cream, I'm picking up tea, I'm picking up coffee. And a lot of times I have meetings. I do a lot of meetings with community members who either they just want to talk business, or random people who want to start a business. They want to ask me a million questions. So there's a lot of that. And then I have to work on the schedule to make sure every shift is covered. And then I have to work on social media as well. And I do also a lot of studying of business. So I'm always reading a business book. So that's usually within the day as well. Lots of things. And then, of course, if we have an event, then I'm usually out on the caboose for 10 to 12 hours. Have to get up, have to load it, I have to make sure we have everything we need, drive out to the event, set it up, run the event with the staff, close down, go to the kitchen, do the dishes, put it away, and that's usually like a 12 to 16 hour day.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's brutal, but I'm used to it by now.
Do you have any practices in place to help you sort of get through 16-hour days and maintain productivity and not go insane?
Yes, definitely. I do a lot of meditating. I have to really, really pay attention to my breathing. When I first started my business, I wasn't quite as in touch with my breathing, and I had a lot of physical symptoms of anxiety that I would be having stomach aches and heart palpitations and things like that. And I had to really learn to breathe properly throughout everything. And I've also been really practicing mindfulness. So mindfulness and self-affirmations. So when I wake up and I'm feeling anxiety and I know I'm about to work a 12-hour day, I just have to have a little chat with myself. Like, okay, this is what I do. I am a badass. I run a coffee truck. I am strong. I am powerful. This is nothing new. I've done this a million times, nothing to be afraid of. If something goes wrong, I know how to fix it. I can do this. And that paired with during the day having mindfulness, so breathing and really focusing on the task and shutting my mind off allows me to use less energy than if I was anxious and worried and thinking about the things I needed to do and worrying about what could go wrong. That takes up a lot of energy. So I have to really breathe as I'm doing the tasks, breathe as I'm unloading the trailer, breathe as I'm taking customer orders, breathe as employees are coming to me with problems. And it sounds so simple when you say it, but most people don't really notice their breathing throughout the day.
Yeah.
And so that's been a really, really powerful tool for me to get through the long days. Also, I mean, coffee helps.
Yeah.
Coffee helps. And I am a huge fan of CBD. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but
Yeah,
it's
I've
really
heard of it.
awesome stuff. And
Mhm.
so I take these CBD capsules that calm down my body, that really help ease the physical symptoms of anxiety. And I find that when my body is relaxed, then my mind can relax, and that I then have enough energy to make it through the day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's really useful to categorize anxiety as using up your energy. So
Yeah,
any steps you can take to minimize that will also increase the energy you have to spend on useful things.
exactly.
Yeah, and as you probably know, if you've been listening to the podcast, we're always interested in meditation and mindfulness. And
Definitely.
yeah. Where did you first hear about mindfulness practice? Do you know?
In college, I took a Buddhism class,
Nice.
and we were assigned some incredible books about Zen and about mindfulness. I think we read like 3 books about mindfulness. One of them was called Mindfulness in Plain English. And
That's the first one I had.
We've
really?
read segments of that book on the podcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
no shit. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit behind on my episodes. But yeah, so Mindfulness in Plain English was really what opened my eyes to mindfulness. And it was so powerful to just like switch your brain into thinking or into not thinking, really. And to not thinking about the million things that could go wrong and just open your eyes to what actually is. What's real? What are you making up in your head versus what is actually real? And also using mindfulness as like a powerful tool to create your own reality. So envisioning what you want to happen, envisioning what your ideal future looks like, and really trying to manifest that every single day instead of using your brain to worry about what could go wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
What do you think is, and maybe mindfulness is it, but what do you think is the best advice that you've received about, this whole process?
about the whole business process?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Well, something I think about all the time, I heard from a local woman who's been in business for like 30 years. She has a sweet potato baked goods company. She was just candidly talking about how shitty it is to run a business, which is so true. It can be so shitty. You'll have days where everything is going wrong and you want to quit. And she was like, just talking about one day in particular where everything was going wrong, and she was sitting in her pie shop thinking like, what am I doing with my life? Everything is going wrong. And then all of a sudden, one customer comes in and orders like 30 pies. And
Whoa.
and all of a sudden, she had the moment of like, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I really connected with that, because most days are just, the usual. Some days are really bad, but then you have those moments. And hearing her say this allowed me to believe that there would be those moments where something incredible would happen and it would make sense. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I want to help people, because I want to make a difference. And so that really stuck with me, especially during the hard moments, that I just have to believe that like those good moments are coming. Like when I want to quit, I just have to believe that something good is going to come along. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really good advice, because a lot of days are really, really shitty. It's not all fun and games. It's not just me running this adorable coffee trailer. It's a lot harder than that. There's a lot of bullshit, but there's also like a lot of really good moments that I just have to like know that they're going to show up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a quote from Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. Mm-hmm. He says, being an entrepreneur is like eating glass and staring into the abyss of death.
I vibe with that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crunchy.
Crunchy glass.
Yeah. What do you think is the worst advice that you've ever gotten?
Oh my God. I get so much bad advice. Customers, like, can be so stupid. They they just, I don't know what it is, but they feel the need to tell me every place that they think I should bring the coffee trailer. Like, they have all these ideas of where I should go, and they're always bad. They're like, you should come to my office. It's only about 30 minutes away, and we have like 50 employees, and you should come set up. It'll be great. It won't be great. It sounds horrible. Or you should come to this BMX dirt bike competition. It'll be really awesome. No, it won't. Or you should set up at the Woodward Dream Cruise. People love coffee. Tried that. It was horrible. It's all old white men. They don't want coffee from a cute trailer. So it's mostly like I get bad advice every day of where I should take the trailer. That never gets old. And I'm always just like, okay, I'll put it on the list. No, I won't. Other than that, though, I'm not. I can't really think of any other bad advice I've gotten. I'm sure I've gotten a lot of bad advice along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and, it seems like bad advice probably doesn't survive because it's bad advice. So it makes sense that it wouldn't be common. Are there any things that you see commonly when people talk about starting businesses where you're like, that's not quite right, or maybe I would advise somebody a little differently?
Yeah, so people who want to start a business, but they don't really want to sacrifice anything. They want to either keep their job, or they think that they only have to do it part-time. They aren't really committed to going all in. I always find myself advising people to really have a chat with themselves if they're ready to commit fully, because a lot of times when you're running a business, the business is actually running you, and you have to make a lot of sacrifices. Like, I haven't really bought a new piece of clothing in 3 years. I don't spend money. I barely pay myself. I pay myself what I have to pay myself. I say no to a lot of social engagements because I have to work. And I think a lot of people are naive about what it really takes. You have to go all in. It takes over your life completely. And if you're not okay with working 90 hours a week, then don't do it.
What kind of personality traits do you think make for successful business owners, and how do you feel like your personality lines up with, what you think sets you up for success?
I would say you have to have grit, so you have to be really tough. There are so many moments where you're challenged and you're confused and you have to make a decision and you don't know what the right decision is and you just have to do it and you have to be tough, and you have to not give up easily, and be very stubborn about your vision and your goals, because there are so many opportunities to give up along the way. And you just have to be really tough. And I had so many mornings where I had to get up at 4 a.m. to go to an event, and I wake up and I just immediately started crying because I was exhausted. And that was a moment where I could have called in and canceled the event, but I had to be tough. And also, I would say being a good leader is really important. If you want to run a business, there's absolutely no way you can do it by yourself. And you have to be the type of person that has charisma and energizes people to want to follow you, to want to help you, to want to work hard to reach the common goal. And there are many principles of leadership that really enable you to be a good boss, such as you have to be the type of person that can enable your followers to grow and to feel like they are succeeding and excelling and growing while they are working for you. So there's many different parts behind being a good leader, but I think that anyone who wants to start a business should really study how to be a good leader.
Yeah. And how do you feel like your personality has fit into that? Did you find yourself, other than, I mean, I guess you did mention, just sort of trying to fight exhaustion and having the toughness to get through that. But did you ever feel like you were fighting any aspects of your personality that, you've now figured out how to make work for you?
For me, something that I found in the beginning was really weighing me down, but I, turned it into a superpower, was just, again, back to having a lot of anxiety about things. Using anxiety in a useful way to help me think about all the outcomes, but not in a way where I'm super scared, but in a constructive way where I make sure that I'm prepared. In the beginning, it would keep me up at night and I'd be worried about all the things that go wrong. But now it's sort of a superpower because I can think about all the things that can go wrong and make sure that we are prepared for them. So for me, coming from the background of having to take care of my brother and sister and make sure everything in the house was taken care of, led me to be super organized and super really good at making sure that everything is taken care of. Another thing that I feel like is my superpower is I'm just very much an extrovert. So I get energy from talking to people, being with people, being out in the public gives me energy. And at the end of the day, I feel okay. Introverts, talking with people takes energy from them. So I guess if an introvert wanted to start a business, it might have to be the type of business where you're not serving a billion cups of coffee to the community every single day and answering a million stupid questions.
Do you think you need a higher order goal to help you be successful in starting a business, like certain principles or values that kind of you feel like are greater than the the business that you try to live up to? And if you do, what are those?
Yeah, I think that having a higher purpose is very powerful and very necessary when you're running a business, because at the end of the day, you can have a very long 12-hour shitty day, and you can question, what am I doing this for? What's the point? And if you have something more than just making money in your brain, if it's about more than just the fame, the money, if it's about something like making people feel happy, or creating a community, or making a change, making a difference, if that's really important to you, that will give you strength. So for me, I really care about making people happy, and I really care about community, and making people feel welcome and included and good, and making people laugh and saying weird stuff to people to make them laugh. That gives me strength on the days that I feel like I want to give up, and the days that I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? This is insane. We just went out for 5 hours and we didn't make any money, and I'm exhausted, and this broke and that broke, and this person was mean to me. And I'm able to like really connect back with like my purpose. And I feel like if you don't have a purpose other than making money, you'll fizzle out really quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Our sort of higher purpose. Well, for me anyway, I've noticed that I'm very energized by good ideas and finding better ideas, and for me, like, there's just this never-ending energy for pursuing ideas that are better than the previous versions of those ideas. And I think that's one of the things that's propelled my enthusiasm for this podcast. In that light, what do you think is the biggest change in perspective you've had since starting the entire journey of Drifter?
The switch.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew you were going to ask me this. So I think it still goes back to I think that the switch for me happened when I stopped feeling like I wasn't good enough to do it, and started really connecting with my own greatness. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean that in like a self-healing kind of a way, where in the beginning I wasn't confident in myself, confident in my product, confident in my business. And so all of the compliments that I was getting, all of the press that I was getting, I felt really disconnected to all of that. It didn't penetrate me. It bounced off. And I think the switch happened when I started telling myself, like, I am great. I am doing a good job. I have a successful coffee truck. Before, I did have a successful coffee truck, but I didn't believe it. I didn't know. I was spending so much energy saying yes to everything because I was worried I was going to fail, and spending a lot of energy convincing myself that I'm doing the right thing. And so when I started changing my perspective and telling myself I'm successful, people like my product, people like us, I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing good things, I was able to spend a lot less energy doing stupid events that didn't really benefit me. I stopped being afraid of saying no to events. I stopped being afraid of, what the haters are saying about us. And I started really, every single day feeling like this is what I'm meant to be doing and I'm doing a good job. This is my career. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, cool.
Alex, do you have any other questions before we move on to the next segment here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I do have one more,
Okay.
but I figured I'd close out with this. What is the future of Drifter?
Yeah, so I am opening a coffee shop
All right.
this fall. I've been working on it since last September, and we're hoping to open by October, but there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of things that need to be figured out. But my plan is to open a coffee shop in Ferndale, which is where I live and where I started my business. It borders Detroit to the north, right on the border of Detroit. And it's a 2-story building.
Nice.
It's going to be really cool. It's shaped like a mushroom, so it's very unique. It's a very unique building, which I love.
Yeah.
And the first floor is going to be the coffee bar, and we're going to have like bagel sandwiches and cereal.
Nice.
Nice.
And then the second floor is going to be a hangout study area with lots of tables and chairs and outlets so people can get work done. And we're building a greenhouse off the back of the building to do coffee roasting and to host events for the community, like open mic nights and concerts, art gallery stuff, and things like that.
Very cool. Has that always been the vision? Like, was Drifter always sort of, was the coffee cart always a means to figure out a way to build a permanent brick and mortar store?
Precisely. That
Okay.
has always been my goal. And about a year ago, I didn't know if I was ever going to get there.
Yeah.
And so I had some months where I had no really clear way to get to my goal, and I felt like giving up. I was like, I'm never going to make it. I can't do this. I'm exhausted. And then all of a sudden, the coffee shop kind of like fell in my lap, and it renewed my sense of purpose. So every time I go out with the trailer, I'm like, okay, this is for the shop. I'm making money for the shop. I'm telling people about the shop. I'm gonna get there. But yeah, it's always been my goal. And when I first started my business plan, I thought I would do it in 3 years, and I'm doing it in 3 years. So
Nice. All right.
wild. It's very, very exciting, and the community is very excited about it too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Alleah, are there any other points you feel like we should cover before we move to the off topic? Anything else you feel like we missed?
Yes. One other item that I wanted to talk about
Sure.
is sort of back on the topic of mindfulness and anxiety, is the feeling of practicing gratitude.
Mm.
So something that I have learned along the way is that anxiety and excitement are on the same wavelength, right? They're a similar feeling within your body and your mind. And a lot of times, excitement can be confused for anxiety in your brain. So maybe you're actually excited, but your brain the receptors are turning that into anxiety. And along my journey, I've learned that practicing gratitude can very much be an antidote to anxiety. So when you practice gratitude, when you stop and you really think about all the good things in your life, your brain is firing like I'm not sure what chemical it is or anything, but whatever it's firing in your brain when you're being thankful and you're being excited, that's the antidote to the anxiety chemicals. And so I really wanted to just share that with you guys, that's been a really powerful tool for me, just like very much like practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
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 That's it. Last thing.
Cool. Yeah, actually, I feel like with my mindfulness practice and studying Stoicism, somebody asked me once specifically about Stoicism, but I think because there's such a huge crossover with Buddhism, I think it's a consequence either way. Somebody asked me, well, Stoicism seems like a really good way of dealing with negative things. How do you deal with good experiences? Like, doesn't sort of limiting the amplitude of your emotions also make good experiences not as good? And I I struggled with that at first to figure out, because that wasn't my experience, but I wasn't really able to articulate what my experience was. But I realized that no, it actually, rather than making good experiences not as good, it changes the characterization. So I think before studying mindfulness or stoicism, things that happened to me that were good were like, I had this fleeting sense of joy about things. And after I started practicing mindfulness, rather than feeling like good things were fleeting and I had to hold on to them, as long as possible, I was just so grateful for even the smallest good thing. And, that's been my attitude ever since. Like anytime anything good happens, small or big, like my attitude deep down is gratitude. And I think you're right. It is a cure for anxiety, and maybe not totally. Like, you're still going to feel anxiety, but it definitely recharacterizes anxiety into something that's manageable or potentially useful.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, with that, I would like to transition to a segment we like to call the off topic. The off topic can be some idea that influenced you in some way, some project that you've been working on, some charity you want to promote, something like that. So, Alleah, what do you have for us?
So I was actually really nervous about this because, okay, so perfect example. I just kept feeling like anything that I wanted to talk about wasn't going to be cool enough or good enough or interesting enough, right? So I eventually decided I wanted to talk about something that I really, really nerd out about, like something that I've been obsessed with in the past couple months. And simply, it is just how to cultivate community. So I just want to talk about community. You guys are business people, so everybody has different communities that they're a part of. So for me, I have my personal friend community here in Ferndale, people that I can go to if I need anything. I am also in the greater Detroit business community as a whole, which means that people come to me for business questions. I go to them for business questions. It's a give and take. We support each other. I'm also on a smaller scale in the Ferndale business community, which is like a family. I'm in the coffee community, which in this area isn't a very nice community. It's very competitive, very much run by white males with ego, and not very warm and fuzzy. And I'm also a part of the food truck community, which is like a family. It's very fun. It's very kind of vulgar at a lot of times. We get together, we drink. And what's great about being in that community is that anywhere I go, I can pretty much get free food.
Nice.
Because we always trade coffee for food. So within any community, there's a give and take. What types of communities would you say that you guys are part of?
I'm part of the like weightlifting community.
Yeah.
That's definitely that's where I found the most people that I relate to the most. When I was in Berkeley, I had a few friends from Berkeley, Chase and a few others, but I never really felt like I connected with a lot of the people in my school. And where I made most of my friends was at the gym or Yeah, there. That was it.
For sure. What about you,
Yeah.
Chase?
I think the biggest one that stands out to me is actually a community that I've recently become part of that I think is also because it's fairly new in its current form. So I would say about 8 months ago, I got asked to do some sort of political debate. One of my friends wrote me into it, and then he ended up backing out. So I was sort of on my own doing this debate that I had no place being there. But my debate partner was this guy who was very intellectual, very interested in ideas. I'm trying to get him to come on the podcast.
Hell yeah.
But and we'll talk about this community actually. So he was very interested in ideas, and he and I would, anytime we would meet to discuss the debate topic, we would inevitably start talking about other things that were like just intellectual stuff that we were interested in, ideas. Like I said before, I'm always enthusiastic about finding good ideas. And so he invited me to this meetup group that he ran called 103 Great Ideas. And it was based on this book that was a compilation of ideas across the major thinkers throughout time. And it was sorted by idea rather than by author. So instead of having to like read all of Socrates and then read all of Aristotle and then read all of, Freud or whoever, it was like, okay, let's take this idea of wealth and see, what does everybody think of wealth? Or the idea of morality. What does everybody think of morality? And in this meetup group, we realized that we had found a community of people who were interested in ideas. Community of people who they were not only interested in ideas, but they thought ideas were important, that they were worth talking about and worth sorting through, and that some ideas are good and some are bad, and it's worth distinguishing them. But it's also a community of people who don't think they have all the ideas. They're people who are there because they know the only way to figure out the best ideas is to hear from everybody else and to sort of have this process of external cognition where like you're thinking together as a group. So that's a community that I've been a part of for 6, 7, 8 months now, and it's been growing, and it's so cool because I've been meeting all these people from totally different backgrounds who have different ideas about different things, who read different people, but the one thing they have in common is this interest in ideas, and it's grown so much out of that. That's the community that, in my mind, stands out that I'm a part of, that I really enjoy being a part of.
Damn, I just got goosebumps. That's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to try to have my friend on who is the mastermind behind, our little group. But I shouldn't say little group. I mean, we get like 60 or 70 people a week at this thing.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really
awesome.
cool. So community is something that, like, clearly you guys are completely different from me, but you still find value in having a community and meeting like-minded people. And so what I've been studying lately is how to facilitate community through coffee, through opening a coffee shop. So for me, I'm not just opening a coffee shop, I'm opening a community space. So that has its own set of requirements. So it has to be inclusive. It has intentionally inclusive. I can't just set up and hope that diverse people come to my shop. I have to really be intentional about how I make a space comfortable for minorities or people who, might not fit the typical bill of person who goes to coffee shop. Not cool people. So it has to be inclusive. Nerds.
Yeah.
They have to feel welcome too. It can't just be a space that is for cool people. I'm not cool, so I wouldn't want to go to a coffee shop that seems really cool and like not approachable. So it also has to aesthetically be not too snooty or fancy. A little bit of shabbiness is more relatable to people, which is sort of a quote from this book that I wanted to grab earlier, but I let a friend borrow it. But it's called The Great Good Place. It's by Ray Oldenburg, and it's a study on how to create a community space. So what it's really about is the third place. So the theory of the third place states that humans have three places that they spend most of their time: work, home, and the third place. And that is a place that they go on a regular basis where they feel like they're at home, they feel comfortable, they can run into people that they know, and they can go there and do a variety of different things. And also, you have to be able to come as you are. So it's not a place that you dress up to go to. You can show up after you do your jog. You can show up after you go to the gym. You can show up and be completely authentic. And that is the third place. And so in a lot of communities, it can take on different forms. It can be a bar that you frequent regularly and you run into your friends there. You feel good hanging out there. It can be a bookshop. Maybe it's a bookshop with lots of tables and chairs and you visit it regularly. Most often it's a coffee shop because coffee is something that a lot of people share. A coffee shop is a safe place that you can go with a stranger where there isn't alcohol involved. You can go there for a quick meeting. It has a very diverse array of uses. You can go there for a first date. You can go there for a last date. I've seen people breaking up at coffee shops before. You can go there by yourself and read a book. You can go there. A good coffee shop is a place where you can go to figure out what's going on in the community. What sort of events are going on this weekend? What shows are in town? You go there, you get your coffee, and you also ask the barista, hey, are there any good shows tonight? What's going on? What are you up to? And so, yeah, basically I'm studying how do I create that place? And I've started practicing it by setting up my coffee truck in front of where my coffee shop will be. I've been throwing little community festivals for the neighborhood, and I've had good experiences and bad experiences so far. It seems like in order to have a successful community event, you need to have something that is like free. It can't be something where people are expected to come and pay for something. So with a lot of our community events, we did like a make and take where I bought tons of pots and dirt and sunflower seeds, and that was a free activity that families could do with their kids and take it with them. The last one we did, we set up, it was 100 degrees that day. It was horrible. We set up a pool, a little kiddie pool for the kids and the families and the dogs, and we gave out free watermelon and we gave out free popsicles. We had squirt guns, we had water balloons. And so it was something that even if you didn't have any money, you could still come and participate.
Yeah.
And so that's been really good. Sometimes community can be very overwhelming and it can make you feel bad. So for me, a lot of the times the community can be very intense and very rude and for some reason they feel ownership over my business, and they feel like they can tell me what to do, tell me where to go, tell me what they want from me, tell me what I did wrong, and expect these things out of me that I can't always give because they don't really get it, what I'm doing. And so it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, but everybody experiences community in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've been obsessed with for the past couple months.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting topic.
Cool.
Yeah. I realized another community I'm a part of is the dog parent
Oh,
community.
yes.
That's a new one for me.
Yes, dog community is huge. People
I
love their dogs.
I when I lived in New York for maybe a year, the first year, I didn't make any friends. I didn't meet one person that I had like a actual connection with. And then we got a dog and I met everybody. And we were over at people's houses and it's crazy because I had
Wow.
never owned a dog before. And just he plays with other dogs and then we talk and that happens again and again and you meet so many people that you're bound to like somebody. So
Wow, that's amazing. I never thought about that.
yeah, so that's was a huge change for me. I've probably been infinitely more social since that.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It seems, and this is just a tangential thought. Um, it seems like there's almost a Venn diagram between community and tribe, and I think sometimes people tend to get tribal about communities that they're in, especially if they're small, or especially if they've got some sort of barrier to entry. Um, how do you see the role of sort of tribal thinking within communities, or how do you avoid people becoming too tribal about their communities? I don't know. Does any of your research talk about that aspect of things?
Um, well, I think that tribe and community can go hand in hand because for me, my thoughts about tribe is very much about people who have a certain way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, a tribe of people is a group of people who see the world in a certain way, and they all kind of agree on different things. So like I would consider myself part of like the kind of hippie tribe where we really care about the earth and we really care about being waste free and we really care about recycling and like having clothing that is made of natural materials, and we're really thinking about sustainability. And that can coincide with different parts of the community that maybe might not be part of my tribe, but that do care about the same things.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like, I don't really, I haven't thought about any negative aspects to the tribal mindset. Like like the question that you just asked me is something I've never thought about before. So you might have
Yeah.
to take the reins on that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was just sort of thinking out loud, because I think there are a lot of times when sort of tribal thinking leads people to more destructive than productive behavior. And I think the good thing about thinking of things like communities is it tends to be a lot more productive. And I think tribal thinking can sort of go either way. It depends. To me, the thing that seems dangerous about tribe would just be if, like, say there's tribe around some sort of common way of thinking, like you said, but somebody who you consider part of the tribe disagrees with you on one aspect of something, and the sort of hardcore tribal thinking would sort of exclude them from the group for departing from the prescribed norm. And I think that's part of the dangerous thing about tribal thinking. On the other hand, people are naturally tribal. People are naturally, they want to gravitate toward people who think similarly to them. They want to know that, you don't have to pick apart every single person's nuanced stance on everything to understand sort of their main point of view and where they're coming from. But I think it's a balance that is worth paying attention to. That's, again, just sort of thinking out loud about it.
Yeah, and I think a good, healthy community doesn't have all of the same thoughts and viewpoints. A good, healthy community has all the thoughts and viewpoints in many different tribes, all working together. And a good community is open to hearing other people's points of view and differing viewpoints, and to grow together by having a give and take on ideas.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, either of you guys have any final thoughts here?
No, I think that was great.
No, I agree.
I want to know if you guys have any third places that you frequent, any coffee shop or bar or bookstore or nerd store that you go to.
Nerd store. Yeah, there's a nerd store. That's interesting. I don't know that I have any like physical third place where I would just go and hang out and run into people. I think the closest thing would be the place where we do the meetup group, and but that's definitely much more of a regular sort of scheduled thing. So I'm not sure if that fits, but yeah.
I think mine would be the first example I gave of the gym. And kind of to further elaborate on that, I think there's a lot of different people at the gym. It's a community usually rather than a tribe. But what I think is interesting is that it's a place where, you need to take short breaks in between sets. So it's a place where you have an opportunity to talk with lots of different people. And these people do not all have the same job. They don't all have the same passion. So it's just interesting. And one of the things I've noticed is that people are very excited about what each other is interested in or does, because it's so different than what they do. Sometimes the only shared passion is going to the gym. And it's interesting to be so different from these people. Somebody who might just have a 9-to-5 job and thinks it's so cool that you do what you do. And then you think the same thing about them. Wow, that's so cool that they do that, and that, so I always found that to be, it's a very open-minded place, and at least within the community that I'm in it. There's also kind of a consistent idea about bettering yourself, just being open to taking other people's advice.
Yeah, I think that definitely counts as a third place.
Yeah.
And you can be comfortable and you can come as you are and you can run into people that you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, as you were talking, like rattling off those points, I was like, yep, check.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Chase, you're going to have to maybe keep an eye out in your life for different places that you might be able to cultivate as your third place.
Yeah, definitely. There's a really nice coffee shop nearby, but I usually like grab my coffee and run. So
yeah.
maybe I'll hang out there more,
Maybe.
We'll awesome. Well, Alleah, it's been awesome having you on the Switch. Really appreciated everything you had to say, and had a great time with this conversation. If other people, our listeners, like what you have to say, want to follow up with you, want to, keep track of what's going on with Drifter, or, want to hear your thoughts on things, where can they find you? What sort of public presence do you have?
So we are all over that social media. On Instagram, we're at Drifter Coffee. On Facebook, it's at Drifter Coffee MI for Michigan. And Twitter, we don't really use that much. I think Twitter is over. But our website is just driftercoffee.com, and my email is driftercoffee@gmail.com.
All right.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Well,
Great.
We will send people your way, and we'll have all those links in the show notes. So
Sweet.
once again, Alleah, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Alleah.